So we've looked at compound sentences, simple sentences, and complex sentences. So today we're going to look at compound complex sentences. They're not all too complicated, so I'll just help you understand how to use them in sentences and also how to punctuate them. But the punctuation isn't that complicated. It should follow from the other videos that I've posted for complex sentences and compound sentences. So let's begin. So a compound complex sentence is composed of at least two independent sentences. So that's why they have the name in there, compound complex sentences. So the compound stands for the two independent sentences and one or more dependent sentences. So that refers to the part in the name, so compound complex. The complex part functions for the dependent sentences. So you have to have at least one dependent sentences combined with the two uh, independent sentences standing for compound. Um, so the example I've given here is even though I got home early last night, comma, my mom berated me for being late and she took away all my games. So you could see here in this sentence, we have one dependent sentence and we have two independent sentences. So the first independent sentence, the first dependent sentence is even though I got home early last night. So clearly that can't stand on its own because you need more information. So if somebody came up to you and said, even though I got home early last night, you would be like, you'd want to ask them, okay, so what happened? So that's the dependent sentence in in this uh, in this few sentences that I'm showing here. Um, then we continue with my mom berated me for being late, independent sentence, comma, and then another independent sentence, and she took away all my games. So those sentences can stand on their own. So here you see we've combined one dependent sentence and two independent sentence. So that is exactly a compound complex sentence. So you have the compound part with the two independent sentences, and then you have the complex part. Because in each, if you remember from complex sentences, you have to have at least, you have to have a independent sentence and you have to have a dependent sentence. So since we've already covered the compound part, which contains two independent sentences, you have to include the dependent sentence. Now you can have more dependent sentences if you like, but just for this one I've shown just an example with just one dependent sentence. But make sure that you have at least uh, if you want to have a compound complex sentence, you want to make sure you have at least two independent sentences. Now they're also called independent clauses, but I prefer the easier term independent sentences. All right, so let me give you a couple more examples of those sentences. So the first one here is I am tired of watching basketball and I'm tired of watching soccer because they are all selfish sports. So clearly we have the first two independent sentences. So I am tired of watching basketball, comma, and I'm tired of watching soccer. And then we have the dependent clause, um, which has the subordinate conjunction because. So because they're all selfish sports. So because they are all selfish sports, that can't stand on its own. So you want to make sure you have those two other independent sentences there. Now, for the punctuation, it's still the same. So if you understand how to punctuate compound sentences by using a comma and a coordinated conjunction, and if you're doing complex sentences, you may need to use a comma, you may not. You can also use a semicolon if you like, but I have posted videos explaining those parts. Um, but for this first sentence here that I've shown you, you want to make sure if you're writing a compound complex sentence, you have those two independent sentences and at least one dependent sentence. And just another note, so the dependent sentence can be a subordinate clause like the one I've shown here, or it could be a relative clause. A relative clause usually has a relative pronoun such as when. Um, I've given an example here to show you. So Actually, let's just jump to that last one. So the last one does have that relative clause. When I arrived late for my exam, comma, the teacher kicked me out of the class and she told me to never come back again. So, so we're starting off with that relative pronoun when. So when I arrived late for my exam. Now, still that can stand on its own, so that clearly tells you that it's a dependent sentence. So you want to use a comma right after that and then continue with the two independent sentences. So the teacher kicked me out of the class, comma, coordinating conjunction, and she told me to never come back again. So those two sentences can stand on their own. Okay, let's look at the last one in the middle. So I love to learn and I love to watch documentaries because they all improve my cognitive abilities. So again, we start with the two independent sentences. So I love to learn and I love to watch documentaries because they all improve my cognitive abilities. All right. Now, if you have problems with punctuation, don't worry. Just watch my other videos on compound sentences, simple sentences, and complex sentences, and it should help you understand how to punctuate all of these. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, like the video, subscribe, and share with your friends. And if you have any questions, put them down in the comments and I'll answer them as quickly as possible.